My name is Matt Blair, and I am the Goose from Initial Goose Creations, Figure Fight Club Network, and the No Code Toy Guild. This is going to be a quick introductory video to the 11234 block that I invented as an entry-level diorama tool for beginning diorama creationeering, maybe just people in general who wanted to get into the hobby but aren't sure where to start, what to do, and basically it's for people who may be a little bit too worried about the cost of investing into like the tools and materials and all the supplies you need for diorama crafting. I wanted to simplify that because I have, at the time, a 5-year-old daughter who just, rulers and whatnot, pretty complicated. So using the G.I. Joe classified retro Duke and the Canon height of Duke from the comic book series, I did the mathematical scale formula, and it works out that all of our figures are right around the 1 to 11.6 range. It's like 11.608 repeating and whatnot. So I just kind of like simplified it down to 1 to 11 and a half. And then I made the 11234 block. So it's called 11234 because it's an 1.5 inches wide, 3 inches tall, and 4 inches long. It figures a rise and run stair step pattern of a 3/4 inch by 1 inch rise and run for stairs. You can also flip it the other way, and then you have a 1 inch rise by 3/4 inch run on the 4 inch side. So when I first conceived of this idea and I had it on paper, I didn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden 3D printing, blew up. And one night on Plastic Journey on the Figure Fight Club Network, Chris Sisler from Sis 3D Arsenal was on, and I had emailed a few other people about like this just to get like ideas, tips, hint, just anything on it before this was an actual product. And so Chris said, "Send me your, your drawings, your sketches, your math, and I'll do it up." So Sis 3D Arsenal gets a huge, huge shout out for generously creating the STL file for my 11234 block for free. So that was like the start of my journey into creating the 11234 block. And then like I started the No Code Toy Guild, and we started having some visible momentum. And so I was on a couple shows, and one night I was on the Toy Mercs show, and I was talking to them, and I introduced them to the 11234 block. At the time, I really wasn't sure what to do with it, and so I was talking to them, and I was like, "Yeah, man, like it's just math. The math worked out." And so you can see here next to an Eagle Force downtown Sergeant Brown, right about that 4 inch scale. So I was like, "Well, that's cool." So then I was like, I don't know. Like, is there a patent? Is there a process for me to actually like profit off this? And so I was on the show, and I was like, no. Like, I got this idea from math, and it's from the universe, and I was just able to translate it into a real object with the help, of course, of this 3D Arsenal and Figure Fight Club Network. So then Chris, after he made it, he was like, "Man, did you intend for all this stuff to happen?" And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, "Well, I'll send it to you so that you can see." So he sent me a couple blocks. So the original was just the single 11234 block. Chris printed out 4. And so he was playing around with them. And so it turns out if you make a block this way on the 3/4 inch side, you now have 3 inches. You have 1.5 inches, 3 inches, 0.75. So you have a 3.75 inch scale right here. You turn it, and you're at a 4 inch scale for 4 inch figures. You stack it once, you have a 5 inch scale for 5 inch figures. Stack it again, 6 inches, stack it again, 7. And if you stack it end to end, you have 8 inches top to bottom. And that's a decent start for like a ceiling height in a action figure scale diorama. And so I wanted to make this as simple as possible so that you wouldn't have to have multiple rulers and remember your scales and remember how high something is compared to, like, how long something is. Instead, it's all in one tool. So you have height, you have width, you have a 90-degree angle, you have stairs, you even have distance from a wall in 3-inch or 4-inch segments. So it can really help you solidify your measurements and your measuring tools into one device, rather than have multiple tools to do multiple applications. Surprise, new camera angle. So the 11234 block can function on multiple scales, and it helps solve scale creep when you're making your dioramas, because action figures went from, it's like 2 inches, 2.5, 3 3/4, 1/18, and so forth. With the 11234 block, since it's got all your measurements in a basic design, you don't need to have multiple tools. You don't need to have multiple scales and ranges. You don't need to have multiple reminders of yourself at, like, the measurements of what you're doing, because it's all in one tool. So here, without the stand, you can see that downtown Sergeant Brown is right about 4 inches tall. McFarlane has 5-inch figures. Skeletron has 6, and I think it's like right in between a half and like 5/8. And then Mythic Legions are a little taller in general. They're almost 7 inches tall. Yeah. In terms of dioramas, one of the things that we most have problems with is making sure that everything is straight, flush, and even. So with the 90-degree fix on the back of the 11234 block, with 2 blocks, you can hold up one end onto the other and then create your 90-degree wall angle. Easy measurement. You can also go ahead and get a starting height of your whichever. I'm going to go with 4 inches. So now, if I wanted to make this a doorway, I could go 4 inches out. I could go 1.5, or I could go 3 inches out, 1.5. Or if I turn it this way, I've got my inch measurements. So I'm going to put my outside door frame right there at 2 inches. So for right now, I've got my 4-inch mark, my 2-inch mark. And so off this, my 4-inch, line it up, since we know that everything is straight and level, and then using the pre-marked guides on the side, I can come up here 3 inches, and now I have a wall height that's set, measured, and it's at 7 inches. And that is just tall enough for a Mythic Legion, which I think are on the taller end of like the one. So even though we have 2 inches from the wall and we have 7 inches up, we're still going to make a line mark for the bottom of our wall so that we know where it starts. So I've got 2 inches from here to here to make a door. 7 inches to the top of my door. And it all works out pretty well because, again, it's all in one block. So I don't have to remember that this is 7 inches. Usually you don't anyway, because you're always measuring or you have it written down. In case that you don't, or in case that, since this is an entry-level diorama builder tool, this helps because you don't have to have multiple rulers, compasses, protractors, measuring devices, speed squares, whatever else to get a 90-degree edge. You can hold it here, and then on your 2-inch line, I can extend it, make it flat here, go out my 4 inches, and then I know that my space in between here and here can be a quarter, or that it's wide enough for the figures. I don't have to like guess and estimate and like try to put figures on top of rulers. I already have all the measurements right here, and they're all to their own scale of 1 to 11 and a half, 1 to 11.5. I promise it works. My plan for the 11-234 block was to, keep it under wraps. I've told a few people, so I'm not very good at keeping things under wraps. But my plan was to bring it to Titan's Toy Expo and enter it in the Creator Crown Awards in the sculpture category, because it's a 3D sculpt. And it was there that I was gonna, have it available on Thingiverse, and just hopefully have like some already printed out. Maybe bring my 3D printer there, or if there's a 3D printer available, just start printing them out so I can give them to people so they can enjoy them, have fun. I started a GoFundMe to help me get to Titans and to bring the 11-234 block to Titans, and to help me with any expenses around like local toy conventions and expos and just get-togethers and meetups, so that I can have the additional funds to like buy filament and print out more 11-234 blocks and bring them to like local schools and art departments, scout troops. I don't care. Whoever wants to try it out, they can, right? It's about building something more than building something for ourselves. So yeah, I am asking for donations to help me get to Titans, to help me cover the costs and expenses for my 11-234 block, and to help me be able to have room to promote and grow the awareness of the 11-234 block, and the fact that it's free, and that you can go to your local public libraries that have 3D printing services and have it printed there. It's accessible. And then any extra funds that I may raise, I'm going to use and invest in me and towards my time of being a 3D designer, or just a inventor, a toy guy, just something fun to enjoy my love of collecting toys, my hobby and passion, building dioramas. Just I want to do it for real life, even if it's just part-time, because it's really hard to pay the bills with a free tool and a wish and a dream of being a diorama maker. And so yeah, so I'm literally swallowing my pride, saying that I can't do it alone. I'm asking for your help to bring my free and accessible tool to as many people as possible. If you donate to my GoFundMe, I will email you the STL files for my 11-234 block. It's free. I don't want to gatekeep it. I don't want to keep it to myself. I don't want to make money off of it, because it's art, math, science, and it's for the community. It's to help people be encouraged. It's to help them like learn, grow, expand, build something themselves. So now I'm asking, can you help me build a community? Yeah, you can. We can do it together. We build this together. We build everything together. Let's do this. Let's get the 11-234 block out in the public. Let's get it to Titans. Let's get it in the hands of as many adults, students, kids, whomever. Let's build something better together. You guys rock. I love you all. See you soon. Figure Fight Club, Initial Goose Creations, No Code Toy Guild. Oh. See you guys. So the reason why community is important to me is that a lot of us collectors, we tend to like pigeonhole ourselves. We get stuck in basements or on screens, which is awesome. We're sharing, hobby, passion with like-minded collectors, other creationeers, hobbyists, people who, also collect toys. Um, but like, we aren't individual people. Like, we weren't biologically designed to be alone, And so if my tool encourages people to go to the library, and maybe like check out a book, meet some people, find a community of other like-minded individuals. That's excellent. Heck yeah. We're building more than just dioramas. You know, we're giving people permission to enjoy the whimsy, to be a kid again, to see what their imagination can make with just simple tools, free and accessible, right? Why would I want to put this behind a paywall if it can potentially help people get into the hobby, if it can potentially help people express their, inner artist? If, it's art, it's math, it's science, it's all the things beautiful about the world that makes the world. And if it helps, excellent. That's why I'm asking for your help, because this is free. Because I want to help build up the community. I want to help build up people. I want to help people build for themselves with this entry level tool. This is not made for, people like a Duarte or any other like HBX Customs, or, any other of the hundreds of thousands of like extremely talented diorama makers. This is for like, the mom or the dad that might collect toys, and like their kids are starting to get into it and they want to make dioramas. Man, I've spent like hundreds of dollars on, like tools. No. Library card. Free. So now we know we can get height, we can get length, we can get scale, we can get approximate total scale for the project from this tool. We also don't have to spend minimal money on it. I want it to be as free and accessible as possible, because this is essentially just a real object of art, math, and science. And art, math, and science shouldn't be gatekept from anybody or behind any paywall for any reason, because this helps develop, encourage, and build the future. We need more tools in the hands of kids to learn how to build, how to grow, how to imagine, how to dream, how to plan a project. This can help. This can also reduce the amount of time it takes to get into the hobby, the passion. It can reduce the amount of time that it takes to get all the materials and the supplies to do the hobby. This can be printed out at your local public library for a minimal cost, and it can be downloaded for free off the internet, which I'm going to have on Thingiverse and Maker World and wherever else I can get it. I want it to be accessible. I want it to be free. I want people to be able to go to their public library and download this and use it and print it off there and give their public library, money and funding. And then maybe, of course, they can develop a community at their local public library. How awesome would that be?